Okay, our next question is from Brian. Carbs for endurance once fat adapted. Rob, I love your insight. I'm a 47-year-old cyclist, typically the last guy on earth touting a low carb eating regimen. But I've been keto over a year and have seen performance increase against my age. I presume my body has undergone a metabolic shift in fuel source because it's working for me. My question is, should us endurance guys still carb load to have glucose present during long events, or should calorie consumption prior to long events stay parallel to our everyday eating regimen? In other words, once this metabolic shift occurs in the macro perspective of one's nutrition, is it assumed that the best fuel choice during ultra events be the same? Would reintroducing glucose be a safety net or a waste of calories, in your opinion?
Man, so the first caveat here is I am absolutely not an endurance coach. I watch this stuff from afar. It's not in my wheelhouse, so take that with a huge grain of salt. 5-gram grain of salt. I've seen this work all over the map, and in general, the benefit of a low-carb fueled athlete is that he or she will need less in-event fueling than what somebody else would, and a more carb-centric individual. Marathon doesn't really seem to matter that much if you're really fast, because the marathon, those dudes are running so fast and they get it done in about 2 hours, which is kind of the outer edge of what one's glycogen stores are. So the people who typically hit the wall in marathoning do it because they run slow enough such that they end up depleting their muscle glycogen and they're not adequately fat adapted. So if you're real fucking fast and the duration isn't that long, then like even the glycogen stores from keto adaptation will kind of motor you through that for the most part. I have absolutely seen folks do like the sweet potato or rice the day before an event, and that works well for some people. Peter Defty over at Vespa, OFM, Optimum Fat Metabolism. He's an endurance coach, legit endurance coach, has a lot of people under his tutelage. They do a couple of different strategies. They will do the day before doing higher carbs so that you get some top off. Other people simply use some goo or some other things, but they're able to use it pretty selectively because they are running more on a fat adapted kind of plateau or process. Trying to think of any other offerings there. Joe Friel is a great coach. Peter Defty, Elijah Markstrom, and I'm thinking back to the question that we just asked a moment ago. Elijah Markstrom is a really well-known kind of Spartan race athlete. He noticed that being purely ketogenic was problematic, and what he experienced was it was almost like he had a governor on his heart rate. Like he would try to push hard, but his heart rate would be much higher, fully keto fueled versus like even doing like 100, 120 grams of carbs. At a given power output, his heart rate would be like 10 to 20 beats less, which is huge. Like it can make or break a scenario. So, I mean, I've seen a lot of different strategies on this stuff, and it's just all up for the tinkering. Potentially I would reach out to some of the people that I've mentioned, maybe nose around some of the other low carb or low carb endurance coaches, and maybe have them kind of take you under their wing for some period of time so that you can help get that stuff dialed in. But my sense is definitely that there's not a one size fits all approach to this. It's really dependent on a ton of different variables. The duration of the event, how fat adapted you are. Again, shorter events like a sprint, triathlon, and I think they mentioned
cyclist.
ultra events.
I don't think, ultra events.
Yep. Ultra events. I mean, real long stuff. People do still use carbohydrate during those events, like Sami Ainkainen, who's a co-founder of Verta. He did a pretty interesting blog post talking about a really epic bike ride that he did, and he ended up consuming 150, 200 grams of carbs throughout the course of that day, but was also tracking his ketone levels, and he was ketogenic the whole time, but because of the work output. So yeah, man, I wish I had a more concrete answer for you, but this is where like working with a coach, or if you're going to put this stuff together, You kind of just need to establish a baseline and then pressure test it and see how things do. And then, A/B test variables. I added pre-workout carbs, these things happened. I added intra-workout carbs, these things happened. I added intra-workout carbs plus some MCT oil, and I pooped my pants. That thing happened. So, you just kind of have to get in and tinker with it. And again, some of the really well-established endurance coaches may have a much better kind of algorithm that they move through it, but I understand that stuff in theory, not in practice.